Hi, welcome back. This is the start of video 4 in the Medicare series. When we look at Medicare, it was a great program. I sometimes explain, I say, what is Medicare's greatest failure? And here's the problem. If you get the wrong type of sickness, you can lose everything. We have another health care expense in retirement. It's basically long-term care. Catastrophic illness planning, home care planning. It runs the gamut, but basically we're looking at care that we can no longer basically take care of ourselves and we need someone else to help. When you look at the costs of, outside of the New York City area, Genworth is a particular company. You look for a home health aid. In 2015, the cost was $4,300 monthly. They project those costs to increase to a little over $8,000. Adult daycare was $1,571, escalating to $2,837, and on and on and on. If you go to a nursing home in a private room, it's $12,551, and it can escalate up to $2,310. So what the cost, what the concept with these costs here is that it's not inexpensive for getting long-term care or catastrophic illness. Here's the question I ask. If you needed long-term care or home care, you have to realize that, number one, Medicare does not pay. Medigap does not pay. And you have to pay until you run out of money and assets. And then who pays? And a lot of folks will say, I don't know. But at that point, it's Medicaid. So we're going to learn a little bit about Medicaid in this program. It's very little we'll learn about Medicaid. But we'll talk about that within the next few slides. But understand, we're going to review the difference between custodial care and rehabilitative care. Now, if you needed care in a nursing home for rehabilitative care, then the answer is yes, Medicare will pay. But in this case, when we're talking about it, we're talking about custodial care, where you really can't help to take care of yourself as much. Let's look at the actual definition between rehabilitative care and custodial care. The dictionary defines rehabilitative is to restore to good health or useful life as through therapy and education. But the difference is when you look at custodial care, usually refers to a non-skilled personal care such as the help with, they call activities of daily living or ADLs. It's like bathing, dressing, eating, getting in and out of bed or a chair, moving around, and using the bathroom. It also may include, for some people, that they can't do themselves, like using eye drops. So the difference between rehabilitative and custodial, rehabilitative technically is you're going to get better, or at least enough to have a useful life. Custodial care means you really can't without help. Understand that Medicare does not cover custodial care. A lot of folks get somewhat confused with that, but it's pretty clear and straightforward. Medicare does not cover custodial care. Now, Medicaid was designed to pay for health costs and expenses of the poor. There are guidelines to determine Medicare eligibility, which I will not discuss in this program. Those rules would take literally a full 1 or 2 programs to really kind of even scratch the surface. But what I want you to do, that there is a place for Medicaid planning for some sections of the middle class. So if you have any questions about if you're a candidate for Medicare or that type of planning, send me an email and I will direct you to a list of attorneys that can help in that specific area. Understand there's a lot of sweeping changes out there, making it more difficult to qualify for long-term care coverage by transferring assets to family. There's been a lot of talk in the past. Folks will tell me, I remember when my mom was ill or grandma, they've taken the house and they put it in one of the kids' names. Right now, the government is obviously onto a lot of those things. A lot of people are trying to get Medicaid to pick up a lot of the costs. So they have huge lookbacks. It's been extended to 5 years, and in some cases, the look back is unlimited if the design was strictly for Medicaid purposes. Now, we have about 300 seniors retirees a day that are turning over the remaining assets to a nursing home or the state's Medicaid program. And I asked the question, why does this happen? You have to realize that most folks are not aware. So you have to make a decision. What could you do to protect a lifetime worth of work? The first step is pretty straightforward. You have to do what they call a catastrophic illness stress test. Now, we've all heard the term, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So we need to find, where is your weakest link? What is exposed, what can be protected, and what can't be protected. You've got to review your legal documents, which is absolutely critical. And people say, what does that have to do with it? It's very important, especially with powers of attorney. You got to realize that the rules for everyone are so different. So it's hard to know which one pertains to you. The Medicaid Recovery Act really is something pretty strict. It's been around, and it authorizes the Department of, let's say in New Jersey, the Department of Medicaid, to say that we're going to go after the estates of deceased Medicare clients who are over the age of 55, permanently disabled, when we provided benefits. So what they're doing, they call it like a state recovery. They're going after and saying, hey, wait a minute, mom or dad or grandma or grandpa, they had these assets. We want to go after and collect because they were obviously on Medicaid before they passed away. Now, what's interesting is there are laws on the books, and these laws basically say this: your adult children could be responsible for the support of impoverished parents. And in some cases, they can also extend to other relatives. So what you have to realize is there are currently laws on the books that can say if mom or dad or grandma or grandpa, depending on your age, if they wind up in a nursing home, you may be stuck with their bills after they're gone. What happens is these laws are on the books in 29 states. And obviously, if you look on this list, New Jersey is one of them, which is our home state here. So the stuff out there is not new. Realize this, when we talked earlier, that there's tremendous pressure on the states because of the way the Medicaid program works to get recovery. They're out of a lot of dollars, and they're going to find ways to try and recover these dollars that they laid out. We have, and I refer to it earlier as the Great Tsunami, but healthcare is like a tsunami, where the costs are almost hidden when you view from the surface, but very destructive when you finally see them. So I call it's one part of the perfect storm. So what we have today is an upward trend in healthcare costs, and that's been escalating obviously over the years. It's going to continue to escalate quite rapidly. So which include healthcare costs and also our insurance premiums. And again, it's not new. It's been around for a long time. But as we learn in the Social Security video, if you hopefully watch that or you will, that the Medicare Trust Fund is running out of money faster and in its worse shape than the Social Security Trust Fund. So a lot of folks will say, oh, I'm worried about Social Security. I'm concerned about this, but it's actually the Medicare Trust Fund that's in a lot worse shape. The other part of the perfect storm is we have a downward trend of Americans' current state of health. So we have an upward trend in costs, and we have a downward trend in people's health. So if you want to summarize this, it's pretty straightforward. We have rising costs and an unhealthy gray tsunami. So what we're looking for is a situation where we have a lot of people, the baby boomers, looking to start to go into the system of Medicare, and they're not as healthy as, let's say, maybe our parents' generation was. So many of our health maladies today that we can attribute to lifestyle choices. It's the things that we choose that are making a difference in our current state of health. What we have to do is this. It sounds kind of, we can talk about it in a few seconds. It's kind of counterintuitive, but we really need to get control of this runaway train. I refer to it as one of these runaway trains that are running out of track. You see it coming. You really got to do something to stop this train. So what I suggest is this. You really have to learn how to get healthy. You want to exercise. You want to keep moving. You want to get moving. You want to get rid of your TV. Okay, if you want to watch Shark Tank, that can stay. You want to volunteer. You want to teach someone to read. Or basically today, you want to just teach somebody to think. In other words, do something. You want to get out there, and if you're retiring or retired, get out there and really kind of make a difference. Just do something. The problem is that because of 98% of folks are not budgeting well for these increased costs. And what I try to explain when we talk about the Social Security report and Medicare report, we have a Medicare cost report that'll show you the projections and the cost of Medicare and what the cost will actually come out to be and how you can start to prepare for it. But if anybody remembers the Lost in Space show when you have warning, Will Robinson warning, when the robot would tell him, you have to get this and understand that our healthcare costs are going to escalate well beyond what our minds can comprehend, and we really need to prepare. And here's the projections that are coming out of the Centers for Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security, and they're saying in 10 short years, these healthcare costs and premium are projected to eat up about 40% of retiree Social Security benefits. 10 years after that, the cost can eat up over 80%. So we're looking at basically in the next 20 years, a huge, huge, huge chunk of our Social Security checks to go to pay for Medicare. And obviously Medicare costs will continue to rise. And I kind of always say there's always two sides of a story. There's an advantage to getting healthy. The advantage is obviously we have a greater, healthier, more robust life, longer life. But the other problem to that is that we'll see our healthcare costs escalate much higher than the unhealthy. And that sounds counterintuitive. You say, Joe, I would think if you're getting healthier, you should see your health costs decrease. Well, the answer is, well, shouldn't it be, and why is it different? But it's pretty straightforward. It's a fact. For those that work on staying healthy, we will pay significantly more in total lifetime costs than someone who suffers from a chronic condition, let's say like diabetes or whatever, because the fact is we're going to live longer. The longer we live, the more we're going to pay. And ultimately, the costs become way greater than someone that dies sooner. Here's the numbers roughly. A healthy man or woman can expect to spend almost twice as much in retirement for health care as someone who is diabetic, according to a HealthView survey. So simply this, the length of a person's life is the single most determining factor in projecting total health care costs. Expected longevity, which is based on individual health conditions, it has to be factored into all retirement plans. It's so important. I talk to a lot of folks and I say, well, when do you think you're going to, die? How long do you think you're going to live to? And they say, well, my dad's still alive, my mom's still alive, my grandfather, whatever. They'll give us these high numbers. And I'm going, are you planning for the costs for health care? And I get, again, the proverbial blank stare. So you have to factor these in. And this is where the Social Security and the Medicare cost report really excel. It kind of helps you really get a good grasp of those numbers. A few years back, a nice, I hate to use the term elderly, but that's what the government uses for anyone 62 or older. A nice elderly lady came up to me at a meeting and she asked for help because her husband had invested the money all over the place. He didn't have everything titled correctly, and the taxes were fouled up, and basically, she said, everything was pretty much of a mess when he passed away. In fact, it was such a mess, and she was so frustrated, she said she almost wished he hadn't died. What I'm going to do is throw a plug in for my book. The book that you're going to get with the program is called The Survivor's Guide. I think it's one of the finest things I've ever done. I've gotten so many compliments over the years, and the book is constantly updated, that it was so helpful to a family. So please review that book, especially Chapter 2. It's a kind of a questionnaire, but you'll find that a tremendous, tremendous amount of help. So how do you go and protect assets against loss, let's say due to a catastrophic illness, and avoid paying higher Medicare costs? Well, simply this: you have to develop a strategy. This reminds me of a story. A very wealthy gentleman went into New York City. He had to go on a business trip into Europe, and he knew he'd be gone at least 2 weeks. So what he did, he took his high-end Mercedes and drove into a bank in New York, into Manhattan, and he said to the bank president or the bank manager, and he said, I want to borrow $5,000 from the bank. And the bank manager said, do you have any collateral? He said, yes, I do. Right outside at the door is my very expensive Mercedes. And the guy looks at it, sees the car. He said, okay, fine, no problem, sir. We'll give you the loan. They spent a few minutes, signed the paperwork, and gave him a check for $5,000. And the guy leaves. As he's leaving, the bank manager takes the keys. He goes down. He gets the car, brings it down to the underground parking lot. They cover the car. They got security cameras on. They're watching the collateral. The bank's collateral is very important. So the guy comes back from his trip to Europe. 2 weeks later, and he goes to the bank manager. I want to settle up the debt. He goes, here's the check for $5,000, and he does a quick calculation. The manager says, you owe us about $15 worth of interest, and he gives him $15 in cash. And as he's walking out the door, the bank manager says to him, excuse me, sir, I have to check. We ran your credit report. You're a multimillionaire. Why would you want to borrow $5,000 from our bank? He goes, where else am I going to park my car in Manhattan in a secure parking lot for 2 weeks for $15? And, when we're doing that live, a lot of, folks kind of laugh, and maybe someone has heard the joke before. The concept that I'm trying to bring out here is the super wealthy, the very wealthy people know how to plan. They know how to develop a strategy and how to make sure their money is designed to do what it's supposed to do. It's passed the right way, and they don't wind up paying extra costs. So as we look at some solutions, we're going to find some ideas that are going to be very helpful to making sure you don't overpay on costs for your Medicare and you don't lose assets. Now, what could be done today to make tomorrow easier? Number one, you have to plan for the mandatory expense. One, because of the how MAGI is done, the modified adjusted gross income, how the effect is on your Medicare. You really want to see the Medicare Part D and Part B report. It's free. You can see how the costs escalate depending on your dollars. You can get a good handle on it. Number two, Social Security planning has to factor in Medicare. A lot of folks, if you review the Social Security program, we talk about a Social Security report, and they're not realizing that impact on your Social Security decisions are affecting your Medicare. Remember, we talked about it, that if you don't take Medicare at 65, if you take your Medicare at 65 and you don't take Social Security, then you're not held harmless. The cost can escalate. So you want to see that Social Security report. Remember, controlling taxes are important for a simple reason. Obviously, the less you give to the government means more in your pocket. That allows you to either spend the money or use it for healthcare costs. And it's very important to have a pro forma 1040s. These tax return, it could be just could be a 2-pager, the first and second page, just to let you know if that strategy is saving you tax dollars or costing you tax dollars. You also want to learn and understand means testing. How, because I have some means, how is that being applied to me? Very, very important. It's also critical to use the dollar multiplier. So that's where you get, you spend $1, you're getting $2 or $3 in value for each dollar. Very, very important. You want to learn the rules of the PPA of 2006. Now, PPA is the Pension Protection Act of 2006. Now, believe it or not, the Pension Protection Act is about pensions, but it also talks about paying for catastrophic illness coverage. It's typical of the government. They put a lot of different things inside of a bill, so it's a little bit confusing. Last on the list is you want to look at the exclusion ratio, or FIVO, income, and that help keep your premium costs low. That's the end of section 4. We're going to do a quick review. This is the conclusion to video 4 in the Medicare program. Let's just do a quick review. We talked about Medicare's greatest failure, the monthly cost for care, rehabilitative versus custodial care, catastrophic illness stress test, the Medicaid Recovery Act, filial laws, the support laws. This is where they can come after a family for taking care of parents. Budget for healthcare costs, very important. The millionaire story. Get your Medicare report. Get your Social Security report. Also the pro forma 1040 to make sure any strategies that you're doing, it's not going to cost you more in taxes and more in cost for Medicare. We learned a little bit about means testing and how that's important, and also how the Pension Protection Act of 2006 can be helpful. I want to thank you for the series. Hope you enjoyed everything. If you have any questions, again, you can email me at joe@realisticeconomist.us. Now, we do have the other 3 programs, a total of 4. The other educational programs are on Social Security, retire on less money, less risk, and more income, and the tax reduction strategies for living well. Thank you. Have a great day. Welcome back, folks. I want to thank you for finishing your video series. I hope that you send some feedback as far as the programs, how they're going, what needs to get done, improved, or changed. We'll gladly do that as we go forward with our next, as we update our topics. As far as the next topics are concerned, we have remember the 4 different topics that we introduced. So you feel free to take any of those topics. Just give us a call, and we'll make sure you have an access code to access those rest of the videos. Thank you very much for enjoying. I hope you enjoyed the series. Thank you. Bye now.